In the shadows of Mexico's violent drug cartels lies a chilling secret, one that few dare speak of, and even fewer know about. It's a world where brutality knows no bounds, where the unthinkable becomes reality. And at the heart of it all, there's a man whose story will send shivers down your spine. His name is Santiago Meza Lopez, but in the clandestine circles of the drug trade, he's known by a much more sinister title, Human Soup Chef. But first, in order to learn more about him, let us examine his past. Santiago Meza Lopez, also known as El Pozolero, or the Stew Maker, was born in Guamachil, Sinaloa, Mexico, in the late 1960s. He grew up in poverty and faced limited opportunities for legitimate employment. His early life was far removed from the world of crime and violence that he would later become a part of. He started his career as a bricklayer, a humble profession that belied the dark path that lay ahead. However, the circumstances of life had other plans for Lopez. He found himself drawn into the world of Mexican drug cartels, specifically the notorious Arellano Felix cartel in Tijuana. One of the most well-known drug trafficking groups in Mexico was the Arellano Felix cartel, popularly referred to as the Tijuana Cartel. Formed in the late 1980s, it quickly rose to power and became a dominant force in the illegal drug trade, particularly in the Tijuana region, controlling smuggling routes into the United States. At the helm of the Arellano Felix cartel stood Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, a pivotal figure in the history of Mexican drug trafficking. Felix Gallardo, also known as El Padrino, the Godfather, was one of the founding members of the Guadalajara cartel, which later split into various factions, including the Tijuana cartel. Felix Gallardo was a shrewd and ruthless leader who consolidated power by forging alliances with other drug trafficking organizations and corrupting government officials. Under his leadership, the cartel amassed immense wealth and wielded considerable influence, making it a formidable force in the illicit drug trade. However, Felix Gallardo's reign came to a dramatic end with the murder of DEA agent Enrique "Kiki" Camarena in 1985. Camarena was actively investigating the cartel's operations and had uncovered damning evidence against Felix Gallardo and his associates. In retaliation, Felix Gallardo ordered Camarena's abduction, torture, and eventual murder, sparking international outrage. The killing of a DEA agent provoked a swift and relentless response from the United States government, leading to a massive crackdown on the Guadalajara cartel and its affiliates. Felix Gallardo was eventually apprehended in 1989 and sentenced to life in prison for his role in Camarena's murder, effectively dismantling the cartel's leadership structure. The demise of Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo dealt a significant blow to the Arellano Felix cartel. His arrest triggered a power struggle within the cartel as various factions vied for control of its vast operations. Unable to maintain unity in the absence of its central figure, the Guadalajara cartel splintered into three rival factions, each led by former associates of Felix Gallardo. 1. The Tijuana cartel, led by his nephews the Arellano Felix brothers. 2. The Juarez cartel, led by his former associate Amado Carrillo Fuentes. 3. And the Sinaloa cartel, led by his former lieutenant Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Felix Gallardo's former bodyguard Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The aftermath of the Guadalajara cartel's disintegration witnessed fierce competition among its three main factions, the Tijuana, Sinaloa, and Juarez cartels. This rivalry for power and control over lucrative drug trafficking routes reshaped the landscape of the Mexican underworld and led to unprecedented levels of violence and instability. The Tijuana cartel, led by Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo and Rafael Caro Quintero, sought to maintain its dominance over drug trafficking operations in the Pacific states of Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel quickly rose to prominence, leveraging its extensive network of contacts and ruthless tactics to seize control of key drug trafficking routes. Meanwhile, the Juarez cartel, led by Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Ignacio Coronel Villarreal, also entered the fray, seeking to assert its authority over drug trafficking operations in the state of Jalisco. As competition intensified, the Juarez cartel found itself embroiled in conflicts with both the Tijuana and Sinaloa cartels, further escalating tensions and bloodshed. However, Due to the constant killings of its leaders and workers, the Juarez cartel came to an end. In addition, once the Juarez cartel was destroyed, the Sinaloa and Tijuana cartels emerged as strong competitors in the drug trade. Nevertheless, it did not take long for the cartels from Sinaloa and Tijuana to start battling it out for control once more. As a result, thousands of people were killed in Mexico during this manslaughter. Let's now talk about how Santiago Meza Lopez got involved with the Tijuana cartel. Santiago Meza Lopez, however, was a very talented mason who worked to provide for his family. His life changed when he was given the opportunity to work for them as a construction worker and to look after their horses. The leaders of the Tijuana cartel, the Arellano brothers, were won over by his commitment and loyalty. He proved to be a valuable asset for the cartel, so they decided to bring him on board and teach him about their drug trade business. This marked the beginning of his dark period. He advanced fast from the position of drug dealer to that of drug office keeper, and he was even given control over the cartel's depots where they kept their priceless cash and narcotics. After some time, the Tijuana and Sinaloa cartels' rivalry intensified, resulting in thousands of deaths and more bloodshed throughout Mexico. This attracted the attention of Mexican authorities, as well as the FBI. With the FBI and the Mexican government on their tail, the Arellano brothers had to come up with a quick solution to get rid of the bodies of the people who had died in this war. And after much deliberation and advice from strangers who were experts in this field, they came up with the plan to dissolve the bodies and turn them into soup. The only problem was that they needed someone they could trust to handle this gritty work for them. Someone who had demonstrated a strong sense of commitment to the cartel and a great deal of loyalty from the beginning. One man stood out on the recommendation list after discussions with senior lieutenants: Santiago Meza Lopez. However, they had to first see if he had the courage to take on the task. In order to put him to the test, they took him to a dark room with containers filled with acidic chemicals. They gave him a chunk of meat to dissolve, and he was instructed to follow his cartel boss's orders without even flinching or gauging. And that's exactly what he did. He stood there without flinching or gauging, while staring at the chunk of meat being dissolved in the acid. He passed the test, but 6 months later, he was called back to that room and instructed to test it on a real person this time. Santiago followed the instructions exactly and was given the title El Pozolero by his boss. In 2009, authorities finally caught up with Santiago Meza Lopez, bringing an end to his reign of terror. He was sentenced to over 20 years in prison for his role in the cartel's crimes, but the scars of his atrocities would linger on for years to come. Lopez confessed to dissolving at least 300 bodies in lye for a weekly wage of $800. His victims are believed to be rivals of Teodoro Garcia Cimental, an alleged former lieutenant of the Tijuana-based Arellano Felix drug cartel. The aftermath of his actions is still being uncovered. Every time there's heavy rain or high winds in northern Mexico, more bones are uncovered in the areas where he buried the remains. This grim discovery continues to bring heartbreak to the families of the disappeared, who visit these areas in search of closure. One thing is for certain: the legacy of Santiago Meza Lopez, the soup maker, will continue to haunt those who dare to delve into the darkest corners of the criminal underworld. Please remember to subscribe, like, and comment on this video to share your thoughts on the cruel things these cartels commit. Until next time.